So does that mean nobody could hear us?
Oh no, they can all hear us. But if they want to hear us again,
Oh, I see.
see, we record most of these,
There you go.
and so now we're recording.
Well done.
And I just forgot that because I was replaying something.
Yeah.
Didn't need to replay a replay.
A little AC/DC in the background.
There you go. Isn't that good? So how you been?
Really well. Really well.
So I've talked to you.
Yeah.
We've communicated. I think we
Yeah.
just texted. I don't think we've even talked on the phone. But yeah, you did. You called up once. But you self-quarantined.
Yeah, we, my wife and I, were kind of close to within a reasonable proximity to a person that had to a young person that had tested positive, and of course we didn't know that person was positive until a few days into it. But we take these things very seriously at Stillwater Medical, and so I needed to quarantine, and Jerry did too. And the health department tracked us. They contacted us, and twice a day, and they ask us, "Hey, would you prefer a phone call? Would you accept a text?"
Okay.
And we said, "Yeah, you can text." So we would both get texts twice a day at 8 o'clock and 6 p.m., 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Every day. They would say, the text said, "Have you or anyone in your family or living with you had a fever, a cough, difficulty breathing, so forth," and those classic symptoms that we've talked about over and over in the last 24 hours, or since we last communicated, and you just simply replied yes or no. And of course, for us, every time it was no, but that was their way of just making sure that, number one, that we were following the guidelines that they had recommended, that we social distance or quarantine. Really, we were in our home most all the time. We'd go for a walk now and then, or ride the bike. But I got dragged into yoga and painting the garage and the stairway and things that Jerry couldn't necessarily do on her own. So, we got a lot done, around the house over the last week. But
since
yes.
you don't ask if you were enjoying all this time off, can I tell you what you said? He said, "I'm working my butt off."
Yeah, that's right. I know. I told the folks at the office I would join Zooms every day with our safety huddle we do in the morning, and kind of a wrap up we would do with our incident command, and I would zoom in and listen to kind of the updates, and I said, I'm really looking forward to coming back to work.
Yeah.
But no, and I missed our crew, but it was some good quality time,
Yeah.
at home, and got a lot accomplished. But yeah, we never ended up having symptoms. I mean, we could have been asymptomatic, but we did not get tested simply because, number one, the health department did not recommend it, and the hospital didn't require it since we had quarantined for 14 days. And since we had no symptoms, and since you can be positive, 37% chance you're positive and still have a negative test. The other thing was, since we didn't have symptoms, as I said, you can 2 or 3 days later, you could have the virus show up, as long as you're not showing the symptoms, Steve. You're smart to wear the mask. I'm wearing it for you. I'm wearing it for you're wearing it for me. I mean, we've just got to remember that we're doing it for others.
And I don't know how long it'll be before we see any numbers, if there are numbers. And we assume there will be from the rally that they had with, there were 6,200 people at least in a confined area.
Right.
Most chose not to wear a mask.
Right.
And so, and we've already seen from the president's team, 10 total, if you count the Secret Service, and they count.
Right.
And I think they all spent extra time in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's up to 10 now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I realize they've tested a lot of them, and so I don't know what the percentage is, but that's still 10.
Right.
And then and then you know all the terminology for how that follows up and how that can multiply pretty quickly.
Very quickly. In fact, just like we've seen here in Stillwater, a week ago, Monday, we had 94 cases in Stillwater. And what were we yesterday? Let's see. We were 230. So in 1 week, we went from 94 to 230.
Now, that's just Stillwater alone.
That's just Stillwater.
So that's not the Payne County number, which is
that's just
closer
Stillwater.
to 3. Yeah.
And so we've talked about the R naught factor and how quickly it replicates and or multiplies, and especially when you've got a lot of people together. And like you said, those people weren't just sitting next to each other breathing. they're talking, they're cheering, so these droplets that they talk about, that's what makes it most infectious. It'd be different if you were just sitting in church breathing, or
Right.
you know, I guess people are singing typically in church, but
Yeah.
even in church, you have the possibility of spread. So, anyway, we still encourage people to continue their practices of social distancing and mask wearing. And as you've talked about here, the people listening are probably doing it. So, thank you out there for those of you that are following the guidelines that the CDC recommends.
It is one of those double-edged swords in the fact that it's like, okay, I'm sick of hearing about that over and over and over, and I get that, and I feel like, and I'm sure the mayor feels like this. I'm almost sick of talking about
Right.
it. But if, for instance, the person you were around wore a mask,
Mm-hmm.
that tested positive did wear a mask, and who knows, that may very well be the difference maker there.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yes. And that person was wearing a mask, as you said. Yeah.
Right.
So the likelihood that I and they say 15 minutes or more in a 6 foot distance, and really the reality was I wasn't within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes.
Right.
It was a pretty short amount of time. But anyway, it was the right thing to do for me and for the hospital, and we take it very seriously. And so I got a little time off.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and those numbers, I think, are very relevant in the fact that, and I don't know if you have the demographics or not, but we had Shiloh on, and I think, and you helped set that up the other day, and I really appreciate the work she's doing, and Joy's doing, and appreciate all those folks.
Absolutely.
And that's our conduit here, if you will.
It's a huge team effort.
Yeah, but a lot of the folks were in their 20s to start with. They were in their 20s, but now they're seeing the numbers of people in their 40s and 50s grow, and clearly that's from either going home or going to work, or wherever it might be.
That's right.
But they're sharing that now.
Yeah. So in your work circles, your family circles, your friend circles, and then just your social. Whenever you are going out to the grocery store or the gas station, I mean, you got to remember you're touching surfaces. You're in proximity to people, and so we just want to make sure that people continue to do the things that the CDC recommends. I know yesterday Will was talking about that. It's unfortunate that it's been made a political issue, and the reality is if our leadership, just like that picture you looked at from 1918, when the Spanish flu was going on, and there's that picture of those that Rob Hill did such a fantastic job of describing, where everyone in the stands was wearing a mask. So it wasn't political back then. It was life and death. It was, we don't have the way to care for or stop this, which is exactly what we have going on here. We can't stop it. We don't have the ability to go, here's the remedy. And we won't probably until next spring, next summer. So look at what that means, and just do the right thing.
The political thing is interesting because it can also turn into unfortunately, I don't like this word, but a macho thing too.
Right.
And
totally.
If you go way back in baseball, in the 60s is where they implemented where you have to wear a batting helmet. But they had it grandfathered in. And so several players, and I can still remember in the early 70s, seeing pictures of, say, Carl Yastrzemski and people like that not wearing a helmet because it was grandfathered. They didn't have to, and they weren't about to. A few years ago, tragically, there was a third base coach with the Drillers, a driller game, that was killed with a line drive. Then they made it mandatory that the coaches also have to wear a helmet.
Right.
And there were several at first that refused to, and they were either suspended or fired, and so they changed their mind. But it was just that you can't tell me things. So same with motorcycle helmets, and it's like, it's going to be my choice. That's why when I saw Nick Saban, and I'm not a big Nick Saban fan, I admire his coaching ability, but he's Nick Saban. But when he did a commercial promoting that and said, I want to play football. I thought that was a great spot. I'd love to see something like that here.
And he brought levity to it, including the mascot.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's something to be said for that. I mean, I thought it was very well done, and it's probably the best and only thing that I really have liked that Nick Saban did. But no, I agree. I mean, he is recognized as a leader in the state of Alabama, probably more so than the governor. I can't name that person. We don't live close by, but you know what I'm saying.
And he's a tough guy.
He's a tough guy. He's a smart guy. He's an intelligent guy. No denying that. And so people look to those individuals as making good decisions, whether they do or not. We kind of put them on a pedestal, and those are individuals that can influence in ways that, and it really would be interesting to know what kind of a buy-in they have in a state like Alabama right now, because hey, I'm sure even their governor, if their governor wasn't wearing a mask, and they saw Nick Saban, they might be going, well, maybe I should wear a mask too.
Yeah. There you go. So, and we'll take a brief time out and do part 2 here. Scott Petty's in with Stillwater Medical Center. Tomorrow will be Wellness Wednesday, and so we'll be talking about wellness. I don't know.
Whatever's on tap, right?
If on tap sounds good, right?
I doubt it'll be that.
No, it won't.
And
On tap
Joni
here,
wouldn't allow it.
It's Folgers and Maxwell House in the morning here. But I don't know who you got lined up for me, but that's always a great segment. So it'll be tomorrow morning on Wellness Wednesday.
We'll find out.
We'll take a time out, and we'll be back with Scott after this as we.